What makes a hero? Their abilities? Their powers? No. It's not who they are, but what they do. Being a hero is about overcoming adversity to do what's right. Today, that is exactly what we're going to be talking about as we look at the top 10 superheroes with disabilities that you need to know about. These are the heroes who have not let their disabilities hold them back from being a superhero. In fact, many of these disabilities are actually assets to the superheroes that have them. Through ingenuity, they use their disabilities as though they were just another awesome superpower. See if you can guess who will make our cut by plugging your picks into the comments below before we get started. Alright, let's power up and get counting. Number 10. Agent Venom. Flash Thompson is often known as Peter Parker's school friend and former bully. He loses his legs while serving in the Iraq War. The story of how he lost them is a noble one. After taking multiple bullet wounds to the legs, Flash continues to push on to help out and save the rest of his squad, despite being severely wounded. He rationalizes that it is what Spider-Man would do, so puts his mind to it. This choice causes his legs to become further damaged, and results in him needing to have them amputated just below the knee. The really interesting thing about the way this was depicted in the comics is that we also get to watch as Flash has to deal with this, mourn the loss of his legs, and ultimately not let it defeat him, by coming to terms with his new body and accepting it. He later goes on to become Agent Venom after bonding with the symbiote. Number 9. Cable. So there's a really long version of the story and then there's a much shorter version, as everything is pretty complex when it comes to Cable. Time travel in general makes everything complicated. Timey-wimey stuff and such. The shorter version is that Nathan has robotic parts. He's missing an eye, an arm, and instead has cyborg tech to replace them. The interesting thing is that he also has a sort of technovirus which affects the efficiency of his prosthetic parts. So while his prosthetics give him an edge in most cases, they don't all the time. I just hope that when we get to this level of prosthetics in terms of what we can make, we don't end up developing anything like a technovirus. Phone or computer that glitches is bad enough. Having a glitchy eye definitely does not sound fun. Number 8. Winter Soldier. Since the 1960s in the comics, we were led to believe that Captain America's best friend Bucky Barnes was dead, but it turned out he wasn't. In 2005 he returned as the Winter Soldier. He had survived the explosion that we thought had killed him, but he had lost an arm in the process. Fortunately, after being revived from a cryostasis, he was given a bionic arm by the Russians, who also used him for their own means, in a sense brainwashing him. This bionic arm actually turns the disability into a literal superpower. It grants him superhuman strength, pinpoint accuracy, and he can even still control it if it's detached. Pretty impressive. He ends up turning superhero after the Cosmic Cube helps him to regain his memories. Number 7. Daredevil. Matt Murdock's disability is also his superpower. He is blind, but it is actually in his blindness that he is able to see better than even you or I. He possesses a radar-like sense which allows him to see through sound, and his other senses are actually heightened by his blindness. Combine this with the training that he was provided by Stick and you have yourself a next-level fighter, which is just what Matt is. While operating as a lawyer and civilian, his powers have also been used to help him get an indication of when someone is lying or not, which is impressive, though he often presents his blindness as more of a disability than it is, to sometimes make himself appear weaker than he actually is. It's also a great way to mask his identity, as many people do not often think Daredevil is blind upon fighting him, but everybody knows that Matt Murdock is blind, so no one knows it's Matt Murdock, except for the people that know it's Matt Murdock. Number 6. Oracle. Barbara Gordon was Batgirl until the non-continuity comic The Killing Joke paralyzed her, and somehow that was the only thing that really became part of the continuity from that comic. She has since recovered, but for a long while she was a paraplegic. Her disability, however, did not stop her from helping you as Batman while playing the Arkham video games. She may have no longer been Batgirl, but her insight as Oracle was mega useful. In the comics, Barbara did not let her paralysis get her down either. She went to work creating her own superhero team with her at the center, the Birds of Prey. In fact, she was basically the leader of that superhero team. I actually miss Barbara in her Oracle alias. I personally think it's unfortunate that DC felt they needed Barbara to 1. Heal in order to resume being Batgirl, and 2. to even leave her Oracle identity behind. Like what? Oracle was cool.
Overwatch, we're on site.
Excuse me?
Well, I thought that it was time you got a code name. What do you think?
It's perfect.
I was gonna go with Oracle, but it's taken.
Number 5. Professor X. One of the most famous disabled superheroes we have. Professor X. With the help of Cerebro, Professor Charles Xavier can tap into the minds of almost anyone on the planet. However, he has never been able to regain the ability to walk. I say really because there have been times when Professor X has regained the ability to walk again and heal himself, but he pretty much always goes back to being a paraplegic shortly after. He's had his back broken, I don't know how many times. Honestly, Professor X is iconic in his wheelchair, and his disability almost never seems to hinder him in the comics. It actually adds to who he is. And it adds to the fact that his power is his mind, and that there are many different ways to be strong. Professor X is a fantastically strong telepath, and that is enough for our hero. He doesn't need to be able to walk to prove anything. Number 4. Cyborg. After being caught in an explosion, Vic Stone's father worked hard to save his son by using experimental tech and nanites to turn him into a cyborg. Like many on our list with robotic prosthetics, his disability is his superpower. Without this accident, he would just be an average guy. Well, an average guy with like a genius intellect, but still. His cybernetic enhancements grant him the ability to interface with other computers or tech. He possesses the ability of techno-organic regeneration, which allows him to regen when injured. He's super strong and super durable. Even when he has been torn apart, he was actually able to repair himself when a program kicked in that was in charge of basically resurrecting him. Number 3. Echo. Maya Lopez was born deaf, but possesses the power of photographic reflexes. So despite not being able to hear, she is actually a concert-level pianist. Wow. She garnered this skill from watching other famed pianists play and mirroring them. After the death of her father, who was working for the Kingpin, Fisk saw her potential and took her in. He raised her and sent her to all the best schools. He convinced her that Daredevil was responsible for her father's death, and sent Echo after him. The two fought, and Echo actually would have defeated him, having studied his fighting style based on tapes Fisk provided her. But Daredevil revealed himself to be Matt Murdock, and was able to convince Echo that he was not the one behind her father's death. She then became his ally and also became a hero, using her abilities to attack Fisk and even managing to temporarily blind him. Number 2. Dr. MID-NITE. This mantle is actually a legacy name, as there have been 2 Dr. MID-NITE, and the original actually inspired his successor to take up the mantle. But for our purposes, we'll be focusing on the original Dr. MID-NITE, Charles McNider. I really love his name. McNider was a doctor who was helping to save a witness set to testify in a case against a crime lord after an attempted hit had left them in critical condition. Unfortunately, the mob boss got word of the attempt to save the witness's life and sent a message to McNider while he was operating in the form of a grenade. The grenade killed everyone in the room except for McNider, who instead was blinded, as shards of glass had been lodged in his eyes. While healing, he noticed he felt as though he had more energy at night, and began to work out more regularly in the evenings, giving up being a doctor and instead focusing on writing exposés to try and take down the crime boss who had blinded him. When an owl crashed through his window one night, he instinctively removed his blindfold, and noticed he could actually see perfectly in the dark. He thought he was cured, but when he turned on the light, found himself blind again. He adopted the owl, who he named Hootie, and the mantle Dr. MID-NITE, fighting justice in the black of night. Pretty neat. And fun fact, Dr. MID-NITE actually debuted in DC Comics in 1941, years before Marvel's Daredevil was introduced. Daredevil was actually introduced in 1964, I believe. Number 1. Silver Scorpion. Get ready for the disabled hero who will inspire you beyond just the story of their disability. Silver Scorpion comes to us from Liquid Comics and the Open Hands Initiative, and tells the story of Bashir Bari, who is from a fictional Arab city. He loses his legs in a gang-related accident. Dealing with the grief and anger surrounding the loss of his legs, he ends up witnessing the death of a metalsmith, and becomes chosen by a guardian of ancient power, granted the ability to manipulate metal with his mind. The character and storyline was created by kids from the Open Hands Initiative, which works to provide cross-cultural engagement in communities around the world. Based in the States, this group of kids were mainly from Syria and the USA originally, and came together to create a superhero that they hoped would help break down barriers between the Western and Eastern cultures, and be a hero for everyone. As such, Silver Scorpion doesn't just work towards vigilante justice, oh no. He works towards loftier goals like achieving world peace. The kids also spoke up saying they wanted him to be a hero who fully accepts his disability and doesn't try to move away from it or heal it. Which I love, as many writers and editors often try to use abilities or storylines that lead to fixing their disabled heroes, when those heroes don't need to be fixed, as there was really nothing wrong with them. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list. What do you think about disabled heroes in comics? Who are your favorites? And who did I leave out that you think should have made the cut? Let me know in the comments below. I personally really love Silver Scorpion and Echo, so I hope there are some fellow fans of them out there that appreciated them being on our list. While you're on your way down to the comments, be sure to click that like, smash that sub, and ring our bell so you never miss any of our nerdy notifications. This is Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host, Amanda McKnight. Till next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.